This is Off Script with Sally Hernandez. This is episode 2 in the case of Rachel Cooke. For a summary of the investigation, click on the introduction to episode 1, our off-script conversation with Williamson County Sheriff Robert Chody. I first met Janet back in 2002 when I interviewed her in Georgetown. She cried and asked the media for their help in finding her daughter, Rachel. She asked people to call the hotline if they saw Rachel jogging in the neighborhood or if they had any information about her disappearance. And after that first interview, Janet gave me a huge hug. I didn't know her, and she didn't know me. But to this day, she believes keeping Rachel's story alive will bring her home. Rachel's case touched me as a young reporter. Just starting out in Austin, it has changed me as a journalist and as a mom. Throughout the years, Janet and I have kept in touch, and I became a mother of 2 kids. And I see Janet's pain differently now. I can't imagine going to bed every night not knowing where my daughter is, not knowing if she's alive or dead. Janet is stuck between choosing whether to hope her daughter is found alive and enslaved, or hoping that she's not here, not suffering, but at peace. No mother should have to choose whether to root for whether their kid is alive or dead. Every time I see Janet, I still get that big hug. And usually our conversations end up with one of us in tears. And it's not always Janet. Here's my off-script conversation with Janet Cooke, Rachel's mom.
Starting route to Georgetown High School.
It is a hot Sunday afternoon in Austin, Texas, and I am on my way to go and interview Janet, Rachel Cooke's mom. We decided to meet over in Georgetown. It was easier for me to drive over there and see her. So I'm going to take the 45-minute drive from Austin to Georgetown to meet at the memorial tree that was planted for Rachel, in honor of Rachel, and in hopes of keeping her story alive. Okay, just got here to Georgetown High School and walking up to see Janet. She hasn't seen me yet. She's putting some flowers at the base of the tree that they just planted not too long ago. Hi, Miss Janet.
Oh, hello. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I brought 2 chairs. I wasn't sure.
Oh, I only brought one for you, and I forgot where the other chair went.
I've got one.
I got about 15 of them in the back of my truck.
Good.
You can sit down if you want or stand up, however you want.
Either one.
All right.
Might as well sit down. I ain't getting no younger.
Oh, Janet, tell me about this tree.
This tree, originally, when we picked it out, it was over in the cafeteria behind the school in the courtyard. And it was about 1.5 inches, 2 inches in diameter. And they got it planted, but when they expanded the school, they had to move all those trees.
Okay.
So they brought it over and put it here, figuring I guess they're not going to mess with them here. And it's struggling right now in the heat, but it's still got a little bit of shade, and it's got a bird's nest up in it. You know.
2 pretty little angel statues on the ground.
I love the stuff that people have been leaving. I come by and check it out, and it's uplifting. It's very uplifting.
I like how they have little ribbons hanging off with beads from the tree.
Rachel loves, jazz. She loved bangles and beads. And, yeah.
She was a fashionable, sassy girl, huh?
I bet. You bet. Oh, man. They used to play dress up and do little fashion shows and stuff. Even the little boy next door would dress up.
Well, I didn't know Rachel, unfortunately, but just knowing from you, it seems like she had a very, a personality that just drew you in.
Oh, yeah. And she did for people big time. She was very trusting, which could have had a factor to play in all this. But she cared, and she wasn't afraid to help somebody in need if she could.
Right. Last time I talked to you, I called you and you picked up the phone and you said, I can't talk, I'm at the sheriff's office right now. And then you called me back and you were in tears, and I thought, oh no, what did the sheriff tell you? You know, did they give you bad news? And you said, no, they didn't give me bad news, but they gave me something. What did they give you?
They gave me a absolutely wonderful piece of hope that not only for me, but for everyone in Williamson County. I can't tell you what it is, but there are things happening at that sheriff's department that should have happened 16, 17 years ago. And Chief just an awesome dude. He's not afraid to put his heart out there. And I've seen him cry on camera. He cares. And that's huge to those of us who have been victimized by crime. It lets us know they're not going to just step aside, and he's going to do everything in his power. And he's shown me that through the way he's handled the department. They're there, and it's not. He's not sitting back there playing, solitaire on his computer all day. He's out there, in the field and checking on the guys, answering questions, looking for things they need, trying to make their job easier.
Are you talking about the sheriff or somebody else?
The sheriff.
Okay.
Yeah. He's awesome. I mean, I'm not going to badmouth the other sheriffs because they were doing what everybody else had done at the time, and Georgetown was a small community, but we're growing, and that growth, people here that live here that didn't live here when Rachel got taken, they need to know whoever did this is still out there. And just 2 days ago, I stopped a girl on my own block, jogging down the sidewalk, both earbuds in, and I hollered at her. And I can holler. But she just kept going. She didn't hear me. So I ran up behind her and tapped her on the back, scared the bejesus out of her. But I said, please, take an earbud out. My daughter was Rachel Cooke. She was abducted 16 years ago. And I don't want you to have to go through that, or your family.
You told me the same thing when I met you years ago. I told you, I'm not much of a runner, but I do try to run, not as much as Rachel. And you said, don't you ever run with those earbuds in your ear. And that Rachel's case has changed me. It's changed me as a journalist. Yeah. Talking to you, It's changed me running. I don't run with both of them in my ear.
Yeah. Either run anymore with a running buddy and have somebody have ears. Because if she had heard, if a car drove up behind her, she would have heard it. And she would have either moved out of the way, or if she saw that they were coming after her, she would have been able to have, maybe a little better advantage.
When you used to come here to Georgetown High School, you used to see Rachel running in her track tournaments, and you used to have such pride from the pictures and the videos that you shared with me. And now you don't see that when you see people running down the street.
No. It's sad, isn't it? It really is. And, I don't know how to get past that. I mean, parenting is suffering right now. I mean, I know kids that never take their head out of their iPod or their, and that's all good. But you get some balance. You got to have balance. This is a real world, and you got to live in it and live with it.
How was Rachel growing up? How would you describe her?
Well, from even before she was born, during labor, it was 25 hours plus.
Woo! She put you through that.
And I was a very small person at the time. And she had the cord wrapped twice.
Oh, Rachel.
Around her little neck. So she just wasn't in any hurry to come out and deal with that. But we got her out there, and she screamed, oh, my Lord. Even the doctor, he says, wow, she's got lungs. And I said, that's good. They're healthy.
She was your firstborn.
She was my firstborn.
Your first baby.
And, with your firstborn, you always want to do everything perfect.
Oh, sure.
So I remember I had this book. I don't even remember who wrote it, but it was raising babies and stuff, It's like a good housekeeping or something. And I wanted to make sure I did everything perfect, But as she got older, I realized, the heck with the books. I'm mom. If it works, I'm going to do it.
Good for you. You gained a sense of confidence.
Mm-hmm.
And did that matter when she said, all right, Mom, I'm going away to college in California? Because California is a long way from Georgetown. I mean, not only just physically, but I think in the way of thinking, too, right?
Oh, yeah. We had family in California, and we had been to visit them, and she just loved the fact. She thought, because of where our friends, our cousins had lived, there was a lot of vegetarian type stuff and all. So she thought all Californians were vegetarian. Rachel would make leaps when she should have made steps. But she loved the lifestyle there. She loved the weather, and she wanted to go into fashion design. So, she knew L.A. was right up the road, but, her daddy did not want her going to California.
Yeah.
He wanted her to stay and go to Texas, and all that. And I said, no, go to A&M, go to A&M. And, but she had, she had her own dreams. And finally, I had to tell her daddy, I said, we need to stay out of this and let her make her own decisions. This is something she wants to do, and if she doesn't, she's going to regret not trying.
So she goes to California, goes to college, loves the life over there, and then she calls you and tells you that she's in love.
Uh-huh.
What happened?
Yeah. There had been a bunch of weird stuff beforehand with a former boyfriend, but I was going up that Thanksgiving to cook a vegetarian Thanksgiving dinner for her. And I saw her sneaking some of the real stuffing, so with the giblets and everything, but I didn't say anything. But anyway, so I got to feed him as well. Mm-hmm. And we had a great time. And he was easy to talk to. He was comfortable. He wasn't trying to put on some sort of show for me. And Rachel was happy. She was beaming. Yeah, it was good to see her happy like that.
Did she bring him home on that Christmas break back in 2002?
She did. She brought him home when she came home on her break. And he had to go back after about 4 days. But, we did a little quickie Christmas before Christmas so we could all be together for it. And he's still family. He still calls me.
Oh.
And, he's had a really hard time, too, because he loved her dearly.
He thought he was going to marry her?
Yeah. I mean, they were already engaged. They were already engaged, basically. Yeah. And so he still has trouble with other relationships now because there's enough of Rachel still in his heart to where his new fiancés or whatever, his new girlfriends, they feel like they're competing against a ghost.
He was the last person to talk to her.
Yes, he talked to her on the phone the morning that she was abducted.
January 10th, 2002.
Yep.
You and Joanne were at the house?
Yeah, we were the last ones to leave. The dad had already gone. And Joanne was riding with me.
And Joanne's Rachel's younger sister.
Right. She's my baby. And I went over and I was going to grab her foot and say, bye, I love you, and Joanne said, Mom, don't do that. Because she was really putting in the Z's.
Well, she's 19, right? She wanted to sleep in.
That's right. And so Rachel just, gave a grundle.
Yeah.
But that was the last I spoke to her.
That was the last time you touched her.
Yeah. And, I wished. The day before she had run, and she had commented to me about several things on the route that were bothering her.
Like what?
Well, we had a lot of houses going up, and there were construction workers, and then there was a dog on that corner that scared her because she was afraid it was going to go through the fence. Things like that. And, but that was her route from forever. I mean, since, 6th grade.
Wow.
Yeah. The reason she started running was that Dr. Ford, the principal at Williams Elementary, for the 6th graders, she had a fun run thing. Boys and girls. Rachel beat everybody.
No way.
Yeah.
She's a fast girl.
So she decided, and she got so much praise and stuff from it, I guess she decided, this is something I can do,
And she always came home. So that's why when she was telling you about maybe something that was bothering her, she always came home after her run.
Yeah. And the first thing she'd do is get in the shower. I mean, she didn't talk to anybody or stop or anything.
But other than that, you couldn't stop Rachel from running. She would run from the house to where she was going and then back nonstop.
Yeah.
And then, do you remember when you felt that pit in your stomach that day that this is too long of a run, something's wrong?
Yeah. When I got home that night, Joanne and I got home after Robert. He was in the study playing computer or doing work on the computer. I don't know which. But one of the first things says, have you seen Rachel? I said, no, she's not home. She didn't have a car.
This was in the evening already?
Yeah, this was about 5:30.
Okay.
And, I said, well, did she leave a note? Usually she'd leave a note in the kitchen on the counter. And there was no note. And I think right then I something's not right. And then Robert commented about how all the interior doors were closed. And the only other time where I'd seen her do something similar to that was one night we had a young man from the neighborhood get up on a roof and was looking through the skylight into their bathroom.
Oh, no.
Watching her bathe. And Rachel got all shook up and hollered at me, and I went out there, and Robert wouldn't. He says, go see what it is. He's a real tough guy. Anyway, bless his heart, he was in a good snooze. But I went out there, and it startled the kid, and he almost fell off the roof. He fell. And I asked him, are you okay? And he just nodded his head and turned around and ran. Well, I went through the house. I got a broom. I didn't. So the handiest thing there was.
Sure.
And then I went out the front door, and he was gone.
Yeah.
So that kind of, when I saw those doors closed, when Robert asked about it that day that she came up missing, it just kind of bothered me. And next morning I got up and went to school. I was going to go to work. I figured, well, maybe she's partying or something. I don't know.
Yeah.
But usually she'd leave a note or call. I just knew something was wrong. And I got to work, and the minute I got to work, I knew I can't be here. My concentration is not here.
And you're a teacher.
Yeah.
But your students knew something's off.
Yeah, they're the ones that said, Miss Cooke, go.
Yeah.
Go. And they shoved me out the door, and one of my senior students, I'm going to tell the office, we'll be fine. We're not going to, you can trust us. And I did. I went back home, and I said, Robert, something's so bad wrong. And so, that's when we started searching on our own.
Did you call the sheriff at that, or the police?
That afternoon, after we had gone through the neighborhood and her route, we got in our cars. And he was still searching the neighborhood and talking to neighbors and friends. I went to the hospital. I went to her former fiance's boyfriend / his mom's, she worked at one of the schools to see if she knew where Thomas was.
Yeah. He's the one that there was a history there that wasn't always good.
Always good and sweet. Yeah. And she said he was getting a haircut, and I went to then I called Robert. I said, we need to go to the sheriff's department. Meet me at the sheriff's department.
Yeah.
And I wrote down on a yellow pad, and he just kind of tore a half page off. And almost 3 days went by that nothing.
Well, when you called him, at the time it was Sheriff Maspero.
Uh-huh.
And you said, look, I think Rachel is missing. And did he take it seriously? Did he give it the urgency that you wanted as a mom who doesn't know where your kid's at?
I don't know right off the bat. I didn't talk to Maspero at first. And I don't know that anybody did anything with that note. I don't know what happened to that note. But finally, by that second or third day, we had hundreds of people in our yard lining up, saying, I'm going to search here, I'm going to search there. And we'd tell them, we'd give them baggies and stuff. And we had a line of about 50 people for my girls' bathroom. So, and we didn't, I look back on it now, crap, we could have endangered, DNA stuff.
But you weren't thinking like that as a mom.
Exactly. I was thinking, let's just find her. She may have gotten bit by a snake and gone off in the bushes, or I didn't know what to think, but I knew something was not right.
I just want listeners to know you lived in a neighborhood in a pretty rural part of Georgetown, and there's big fields, at least there were back in 2002, big fields, and the hundreds of volunteers that you said came from a group called EquuSearch, which is from the Houston area. And the guy who headed that search, his daughter was killed, and this was his mission to help other people who were missing. So he came and brought hundreds of people on horseback looking for Rachel. Yeah,
we called him that second night, and it was about 10 o'clock when we called him. 5 o'clock in the morning they got there. Wow. I mean, they came straight from Houston. And we just bunked them out in our living room. We didn't know what else to do. And then we got them a hotel later on, but, people found out because Rachel was well known and she had a lot of friends. And people wanted to help me and Robert. People from IBM, people from the school district. We even had the governor show up on the very last search day.
No way.
Yeah. I mean,
it was a big thing. It was a college student missing in broad daylight, going on a run, like many, many people do in Georgetown and Austin and surrounding cities. When the sheriff finally came on board with maybe she is missing, and he had told Rachel's boyfriend at the time that maybe Rachel left with somebody else. Maybe she fell in love with somebody else and was going with that person. Did you ever buy that theory?
No. I knew after meeting her current fiance, Greg was it. He was, they matched, they fit.
When they did interview witnesses, several neighbors say, I did see Rachel. She was jogging, had her headphones on, and I saw her maybe 100, 200 yards away from her house, and that was the last time people saw her. But they also said, we also have seen suspicious men in the neighborhood in a white Trans Am.
Yes, ma'am.
And I remember police giving me a flyer. I don't know, it was police, the sheriff, or you gave me this flyer, and it had that exact information on it. But that was the last thing that we heard, and from what the sheriff tells me, you didn't hear much after that. The case went cold.
We had neighbors out driving around looking for the car. And, I know that one man found a car similar to that at a paint shop, getting a paint job. And he can't swear that was it, but, we just there was so many things happening. I mean, Robert and I didn't sleep the first 3 nights. The first 2 nights we just sat on the couch holding hands because we didn't know what to do, and we were terrified. We knew our gut. As a parent, you know when something's way wrong. People loaned me horses. We went out on horseback, searched places I never even knew were around, you know. And then, you know, through the passing of time, we got different sheriffs. And it wasn't a real high priority because it had been so long. You know, the worst thing is when we first went to the sheriff's department, they told us, oh, wait 24 hours, and if she's not home, call us. That is not true. Do not listen to that. Call as soon as you know you suspect that something foul play has happened.
Do you think had they not told you that and they started looking for Rachel right away, that maybe they could have found some important clues?
I can't say yes or no because I don't know, but it sure would have made the chances, I think, better. Because time is your enemy in a missing persons case.
And as time goes on and all the search volunteers go home and you and Robert are on the couch left with each other and Joanne trying to figure out where is Rachel for years, then I get a phone call, a tip saying that there's been a confession years later, and I recognize the name of the person who said they confessed because I've covered reports on him before. And I know you don't want to hear the name.
Mr. Michael Moore. And it's kind of sad because everybody thought, okay, he did it, now we don't have to deal with it. And that was never the case. He just wanted to get some notoriety and, you know, a change of venue, you know, exchange of bedding or something. I don't know what his...
Well, he was in jail already, in prison for a horrific crime, and says he killed Rachel, and investigators wanting and hoping for answers follow up on what he's saying. And then in the courtroom, when it's time for you to get the answers that you need, and he's supposed to plead guilty to the crime, he turns around and
recants
shocks everybody and says, not guilty. And I remember that TV camera zooming in on the faces of you and Robert after this guy confesses to it and then decides he's playing games and takes it back. And I will never forget the look on your face.
Oh, man. I had to hold still to keep them jumping up. And, you know, not only him, but how could the judicial system or law enforcement let something to where they were leaning solely on his word put us through that on top of everything else we were going through? I was furious, you know, and...
You go from grief to being furious in a matter of seconds.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah, it's just, you know, he got hit 10 minutes of fame or whatever he was after, I hope.
Were you and Robert still married at that time?
Yes, we were.
The weight and the grief, when did it become too much for your marriage?
I think shortly around that period, it just... Robert changed. He got very driven. He was totally driven by finding Rachel. He had promised her he wasn't going to give up that first day, that he was not going to give up till he found her. And he felt like he had to hold to that. And with every wall that got in front of him, it just beat him up that much more, and he got abusive emotionally and physically. And he just couldn't handle it. And he'd take his frustrations out on me. And I've had a lot of trauma in my life. And there came a point where I had to say, no, I have to take care of me. I can't hold him up too, because I'm barely standing. And so I made up my mind that, if I had to, we had to have some space. On his dying bed, I was there holding his hand. It wasn't like I hated the man. I just couldn't live with him in the same house. And we were high school sweethearts. We went way back. So, he was a good man, but he had trouble with his emotions.
You never wavered in your support of him. I know there was a time when the investigators had asked Robert, do you know where Rachel is? And this was during a polygraph test. And Robert said, no. And he failed it. Mm-hmm. And when I asked him, why did you fail? He said, because he believes he knows where Rachel is. And he said he believes that she's in heaven.
Yep.
Did you ever think maybe he failed for another reason?
No, Robert would not. Absolutely. He idolized those girls. They were his sunshine. No, he would have never, ever. I can't even conceive it. He loved those girls 10 ways to Sunday. I mean, yeah, he would not have done it. As I would. I mean, people asking why it was so long before we got polygraphed. Well, that was Miss Barrow's decision, not ours. I fussed enough to where they finally got FBI in to search our house, and I told them, if you need us to do polygraph, it's fine. And finally they did it, but, Robert didn't do it, I didn't do it, whoever did it is out there. And I want to know what happened.
When you say that to me, you have tears in your eyes. Are you prepared to know what happened?
At this point, it's closure. I'll never get her back. I'll never get this 16, 17 years back. Rachel, would be a very different person now, especially if she's been mistreated. I mean, emotionally, mentally, she might not be Rachel I remember.
Do you have hope that she's alive?
I'm not going to give up hope on anything at this point until I have answers, because there is that chance. It has not been ruled out. She may be in some other country in a sex slave ring or something. I don't know what happened, and nobody knows right now except for Rachel and whoever abducted her.
Maspero is not alive anymore. He's not in office. Other sheriffs have come and gone, and now we have a new sheriff in town, Robert Chody. And that's the first smile I see from your face when I mention his name. Why?
He's on board. He's active in the department. He doesn't mind getting dirty. If he needs to help go out on calls, he'd do it. He doesn't mind showing his emotions. And, if those guys need something, well, he bends over backwards and makes it happen. And that's what his job should be. I mean, God bless him.
Since he's been elected into office, he has gotten the FBI on board full speed, $50,000 reward, maybe more for Rachel. And I could not believe, Janet, I'm telling you, years ago when they handed me that flyer of the suspicious men in a white Trans Am, and then for Sheriff Chody to say, years later, hey, there's a crack in the case. We found a white Trans Am, and we think it's the same one that was in that neighborhood. I couldn't believe it. Yeah. What did you think when they told you that?
It is that same thing as far as the time factor thing between starting the sheriff's department involvement. They had a habit of sitting on things or not bringing them to the top of the stack. And I'm not calling names or anything, but that's not good. It's not as it should be.
You think had they followed up on tips and taken it seriously from the get-go that we would have found that Trans Am years ago?
Yeah. I know they did. Or, I mean, and why didn't they do anything with that white Trans Am that they found? Why didn't they,
So does that make you have some reservations of not being really, really hopeful about this discovery of the Trans Am now because it was so long ago that this happened that it may not have the DNA evidence that they need to bring Rachel home?
May or may not. At least it's being worked instead of just shoved aside. And, at least the FBI is involved, really involved.
Sheriff Chody said that he never got the chance to meet Robert, but he knows that Robert died without having any answers. And he doesn't want the same thing to happen to you.
God bless him. He hadn't said that to me, but I don't plan on dying anytime soon. I'm too ornery, But, I have had to scale down what I do. I'm not as healthy as I used to be. I've done several stints with cancer. And, I'm just going to keep on keeping on. Fat lady ain't sung yet. I think that was the first day I said that. And I'm still ready to give that party, that $50,000 party that I got sitting in the bank, We find out what happened, and that it's just from Sheriff's Department. They can't accept the money. So, if the Sheriff's Department wants to enjoy the party, let them.
Well, then what does keep you going? What keeps you waking up every morning, going after the day?
Gosh, I think it's more just the stubbornness on my part. I don't know. The fact that it isn't over yet. The fact that I still have contributions that I can make to the community. Like running up behind that girl the other day. You don't know. If she starts doing what I asked her to do, I may have saved her life.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't want recognition or anything for it. I just want her healthy.
You told me that the sheriff's office gave you a gift recently of Rachel's handprints.
Yes.
What can you tell us about it?
Boy, you're talking about shedding some tears on the way home. In the back of our property, we had a shed for our tractor, and for the part of it, we made like a little house for the girls to play in, a little playhouse. And on the wall, apparently, we had painted it white, but they decided they wanted to decorate. And they found the blue paint that we had used on the awning. And they went in and all put their little handprints and drew a little picture and put their name. And I now have that in my living room. And, I'd love to share it. It wasn't just Rachel's. I mean, Joanne's were up there, as well as the little next door neighbor boy.
The one that they helped dress up?
Yes, the one that played dress up with them. Yeah. But I'm going to get it framed, and I don't know whether Joanne would be able, her sister, to handle having it. So, because even me, I remember when I caught them doing it, and it was hilarious. They were trying to act like they were holding the paint can. They were covered in paint. Oh, we're not doing anything, Mom.
How old was she at the time?
I guess sometime between 10 and maybe 12 at the max. And Joanne was 2 years younger, so. But the other day, I find myself going to it and putting my hand on top of her hand. God, I wished I knew what had happened. And I hurt for Joanne so bad, her sister. Because they were like two peas in a pod. Joanne idolized Rachel, even when Rachel was being a toot, But things like that are good, They're good for me because she's still here, whether she's physically gone or not. I couldn't tell you, even this young man sitting next to me, he knew Rachel real well, And once someone touched your life, that's it. They've touched your soul. It's there forever.
That has to make you feel good as a mom.
Yeah.
Knowing that you raised such a wonderful person that has touched many lives, that people like her friend who's sitting next to you have stayed in your life.
Yeah. All I had to do is call and ask. Michael's a good man. He's grown up now. He's the same age as JoJo. But he's got a life for himself and a wife and kids. I'll never be a grandma. Joanne's not going to have kids. Whether it's because of Rachel or not, I don't know. But I'd make one hell of a grandma. They'd hate me. I'd get those kids in so much trouble, probably.
Well, sitting at this tree brings back a lot of memories of just keeping in touch with you over the years. It's such a beautiful tree. It's right on the side of the road and right in front of Rachel's high school. So that's why if our listeners hear the cars going by, it's because it's right front and center of the high school.
Yep.
What?
It's the one with all the junk hanging off of it. But it's the most beautiful stuff I've ever seen. Her friends come, probably her cross-country pals. They come and decorate. And I love it because every once in a while I'll come by and check it out, And today I brought a big heart-shaped rock that I just found. And I think I'm going to come back and write something on it.
Before I let you go, what would you like our listeners to know about Rachel, and what would you like to tell people listening right now?
Don't let what happened to Rachel, it back when Rachel was taken, this kind of thing was pretty much unheard of. I don't know if it was shoved under the rug or if it was pretty much not happening. But it's rampant now. You have to be aware of your surroundings. Please don't become another Rachel. And if you know something or someone who knows something, I don't care what it is, even if it seems the most mundane, not connected thing, if there's a chance it could be connected, call it in. And Williamson County Sheriff's Department would love to get your call. We need to put this thing to rest. Instead of it coming to a tree, I need a marker to go to.
Do you need a grave site?
Huh?
You need a grave site?
Yeah. I will not declare her dead until I know something. If it comes to the point where I am in really bad health, then I will declare her before I die. Simply because I do not want her sister to have to declare both of us dead. I will not do that to her. And Rachel deserves to rest, but not until we've given every shot we can at this.
Thank you for always talking to me.
Sally, you're an awesome lady. I can remember you so much. So many interviews.
This is my first major assignment to cover Rachel.
Oh, yeah. Cool.
It has changed who I am. When people ask me, I've been doing this. I've known you for almost 20 years.
I know.
I've been doing this for almost 20 years. When people ask me, tell me the cases that you remember the most. And it's Rachel's up there.
Yeah. In fact, in law enforcement.
Yeah.
People.
Yeah. So thank you for always being willing. And I know you've changed lives because you changed mine.
Please make sure to subscribe to Off Script with Sally Hernandez on Apple Podcasts or iTunes or anywhere you find podcasts.